Welcome, dear viewers. Nice to have you with us again in the Health Television. And today we would like to focus on the topic of toxin exposure and how best to deal with it, or what possibilities, what paths are available. We will also meet doctors, we will meet therapists who work with it, and therefore I warmly invite you because you too are possibly affected by toxin exposure, probably even definitely affected, because every day we are confronted with up to 10,000 different substances that our body has to cope with. So stay tuned, we'll start soon.
Täglich sind wir mit bis zu 10.000 verschiedenen Stoffen konfrontiert, mit denen unser Körper umgehen muss. Also bleiben Sie dran, wir starten gleich.
Hello, dear Harald, Dr. Med Harald Burgard. You are a specialist in internal medicine, and your, I'll say, area of expertise, or your focus, or your favorite topic is actually the toxin or the exposure to toxins of your patients.
Yes, the environmental poisoning.
Exactly. You have great experience with this, and the toxophoresis that you ultimately apply. Maybe you could say a few words about it?
Yes. So more and more people are burdened with environmental toxins, and we have been searching for years, actually for decades, for ways to extract as many toxins as possible. We now use a procedure of blood purification called toxophoresis, where in a relatively simple process we take blood from one side and it comes back cleaned on the other. Filters are placed in between that can remove environmental toxins, paints, varnishes, coatings, microplastics, and so on. And today I would like to introduce some colleagues who also do this, because I can do it alone, that's clear. And I have, together with colleagues, a company, MedSelect, where we basically instruct cooperation partners in this topic, in diagnostics, and so on. And now let's introduce a female doctor, a naturopath, and a dentist, who belongs to it but cannot be here today, who also apply this concept in Schönau, near Freiburg.
Yes, before we welcome the two ladies, because you won't be available to us anymore, would you like to briefly say where patients or specialist colleagues can possibly find more information about it on the internet?
Yes, at www.medselect.de, or by simply clicking on the names of the colleagues later, or searching for it on the internet.
Great, wonderful. Then I'll now say a big thank you to you.
Very gladly.
And now I look forward to the two ladies who will join us.
I wish you luck and you lots of fun.
Thank you very much. So welcome warmly. We now had a quick changeover, and Dr. Med Harald Burgard has already announced us, both of you. With me now are Dr. Med, Christine Dold, and alternative practitioner Sabine Schliebusch. Welcome, both of you. Actually, there would be a third lady in the group, but we will weave her in. You will tell me about that. I would kindly ask you to briefly introduce yourselves to the audience. Where do you come from? From which field? What has been your career path? Exactly. May I start with you, dear Christine?
Of course. Thank you for having us here. Yes, I have been working in a general medical practice for 15 years now, currently by myself. And at the beginning of this year, I gave up my previous health insurance doctor license and am now working privately as a doctor.
Und habe jetzt aber zum ersten Quartal diesen Jahres meine bisher vorhandene Kassenarztzulassung abgegeben und bin jetzt privatärztlich.
Along the way, I met Ms. Schliebusch, or rather, we had been acquainted for about 3 years ago, and simply conversations kept arising again and again. And so this idea simply came about to cooperate with each other.
Sich einfach immer wieder Gespräche aufgetan, und so ist einfach diese Idee entstanden, miteinander zu kooperieren.
Please sincerely apologize for this brief interruption, but please subscribe to our YouTube channel down here. This not only helps us to further distribute this broadcast, but we can give hope to many, many more people. Thank you very much, and continue to enjoy the show. Goodbye.
Mrs. Schliebusch is, of course, on this apheresis topic, which is now the centerpiece of our current activity, is, as far as my part is concerned, simply because of her many years of experience and activity already involved. And so it simply came about that we exchanged ideas about these things. And that is simply now, from my point of view as a conventional medicine doctor, an incredible enrichment of possible medical practice.
Ja, ausgetauscht hat und das ist einfach, jetzt aus meiner Sicht als Schulmedizinerin, ist das eine unglaubliche Bereicherung des möglichen ärztlichen Wirkens.
The apheresis or your cooperation?
Both.
Dear Sabine, would you also like to tell us a bit about your background?
Well, I am a naturopath, have been self-employed in my practice in Freiburg for 25 years. Ich bin actually come from the path of a doctor's assistant, MTA, and then as a medical assistant, and then naturopath, and got to know Dietrich Klinghardt over 25 years ago and have been his assistant for a long, long time, over 16 years, and also a teacher of applied neurobiology. And we still work together from time to time, and that, of course, set me on the path. I think many know the Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt's names, and that is, of course, simply, let's say, a possibility to really holistically approach the whole topic, whatever, toxicology, everything related to it, in a completely different way.
Toxikologie, alles was damit zu tun hat, sich dem ganz anders nochmal zu nähern. Und
And because I have been involved with it for a long time, I have known apheresis for a very long time. And I believe 18 or 19 years ago, I had 2 apheresis treatments myself and keep sending patients for apheresis. And thus, with this thing that we can now do together here in this cooperation, it is of course wonderful that I don't have to send them somewhere else, but that we can simply develop ideas together and really offer that in a truly holistic concept as we think. And it's simply a wonderful possibility, together with Katrin Meyer, the dentist, who also brings in dentosophy, and it's really just a nice combination.
Die noch die Dentosophie mit einbringt, und das ist wirklich einfach eine schöne Kombination.
What is meant by dentosophy?
I think she has to tell more about it herself. It is a holistic concept of jaw regulation, which is something completely different than with any braces or other things, and which doesn't just work structurally, but also involves the whole person. And where you can say it's actually about giving the body the opportunity, the wisdom of the teeth, to find their place. And especially the jaw, naturally, also has a lot to do with expression, with personality, and that's what she predominantly does now.
Mit Ausdruck, mit der Persönlichkeit und. Und das ist das, was sie jetzt einfach da vorwiegend macht.
Ja, ich denke, das ist unerlässlich überhaupt, wenn man sich mit Gesundheit beschäftigt, dass man die Zahlen.
Yes, I think it's essential when dealing with health to include the teeth, jaw, because I believe that by now 70 or 80% of diseases are attributed to interference fields in this area.
So that's a very big topic in my work, especially the interference fields, etc. So because I also work a lot with dentists, and what's nice about her is, for example, very early on, to look at how to support this development well in children. So it's a great, great topic.
Yes, nice. And you have basically formed a cooperation, the Still Eye. E today absent dentist, and you both? What's it called? Does it have a name?
This is the 360-degree med solution practice in Kirchzarten near Freiburg.
Nice name.
I would like to add, so we cooperate, each from their own practice. And as the umbrella of this cooperation, there is this company, the GBR.
Und als Dach dieser Kooperation gibt es eben diese Gesellschaft, also die GBR. Genau.
Exactly. And the 360-degree practice, that's my part. Exactly, yes. Okay.
Genau.
Ganz genau.
Jawohl, okay.
And we are relatively close in space, so the cooperation also works well.
Sodass die Kooperation einfach auch gut.
And probably patients who come to you or to the dentist and then decide they would be well looked after there and there because it is covered there and that there, so that the patients also have short ways.
Dass die Patienten da auch kurze Wege haben, oder?
Absolut.
Absolutely. And we can discuss this well with each other so that we don't have long ways, but say what is currently most important.
Exactly. You already mentioned it with the apheresis with the toxopheresis. How did that ultimately complement or enrich your activity?
Maybe I can start with that because I've been doing it for so long. So just simply let's say the topic of toxins is an immensely large topic and where you can naturally support the patient on the physical level at various points, regardless of whether it's about how I can support the excretory organs like the intestines and the kidneys, etc. And for some people, that's not enough, where they are just so deeply involved in the poisoning that it's not sufficient. That's one thing. The other is that they sometimes can't really detoxify anymore. I think that's simply due to our times, that there are often just resistances, physically, but also emotionally, etc. And to include these things and say, how can we create the greatest possible synergy? So detoxify on the physical level. What things can be included? And there, of course, the toxopheresis is simply the royal class, where you say, okay, in the moment when the patient is now here appear, it's just important to really get to work and say something needs to be removed here and integrated into other things.
I always imagine it like having an apartment or a house filled with a lot of garbage. And if you don't take out the garbage first, you can set up as many decorative items as you want in the house or apartment, or even vacuum. There are simply things that the vacuum cleaner itself cannot remove, which you need to clear out in other ways. That's how I imagine it visually, and then it actually seems quite logical.
Yes, and the essential thing is I can add whatever I want. It doesn't fit, there is no space.
Above all, the garbage smells. It probably comes along with it too.
Yes, and it's no longer nice. No matter what beautiful things I then add to it, it won't get any prettier. And then I just have to declutter first. And sometimes you just have to take not only the shovel, but the excavator. And there is simply really the excavator, which then says, I really have the capacity here to extract a lot. And of course, one must also say that with toxopheresis, there is the big positive part that it also disposes of solvents, microplastics, etc., etc. And that is, of course, very good, something that with conventional detoxification measures rather more difficult can be. The heavy metals, that's one thing we are already relatively well positioned. But regardless, whether it is solvents or these other substances or everything that falls under post-COVID, long COVID, post-vac, etc. So simply also all these immune complexes. That is just a tremendously advantageous aspect.
There are different types of, I would say, blood washes, so that the viewer better understands what we're talking about. I think it is then always the difference which filters are used ultimately, right?
Yes, indeed. It is A, about the type of filters. It is B, about the type of filtration. So the known blood wash procedure is the dialysis. And with dialysis, it simply works through diffusion. I have on one side of the body substances that my kidney can no longer remove itself. So I need another filter to take over. And then simply due to the concentration gradient, toxins are removed. In our procedure, we use two filters. One filter ensures that first the blood that we separate it from the plasma.
Der eine Filter sorgt dafür, dass erstmal das Blut, das wir entnehmen, vom Plasma getrennt wird.
And ultimately, we only clean the plasma. So that means we sort first again. And in the part in which our toxins really are, that's what we clean.
We have seen a lot of images from Dr. Burgert in various conversations,
where he has probably shown the E-load.
Yes, exactly. So it's impressive what you can filter out.
That's one thing. So I come, yes, indeed, from quite a different area in medicine. And I have to say, what fascinates me about it, again and again, with almost every patient we treat, is how lively the patient, the person, simply stands up at the end of the treatment. That's so. I think many people, when they hear about blood washing, first think, okay, I'm dusted afterwards.
Ich glaube, viele Menschen, wenn sie Blutwäsche hören, denken erstmal, okay, da bin ich danach bestimmt platt oder kann 3 Tage nicht aufstehen. Ne? Man hat ja dann schon immer, einfach weil es so der häufigste Kontakt zu diesem Verfahren ist, so diese kranken Dialysepatienten vor Augen, die dann ja eher auch im Verlauf schlechter werden, als dass es besser wird. Und das ist wirklich einfach auch von der Menschseite jetzt unabhängig von der Materialseite, ne, die wir dann ja auch untersuchen.
Exactly, flat, or can't get up for 3 days. You always have, simply because it's the most common contact with this procedure, these sick dialysis patients in mind, who tend to get worse rather than better over time. And that's really just from the human side, now independently of the material side, which we also examine. Yes, just nice to see what's achievable. With how many of your patients is this actually applied? Is it that in the majority of cases it's also used, or how does it behave? It depends a little. That means it would occur to many, many patients. But it is, of course, let's say, there are already certain limitations as well. But it would basically, one really has to say, in the world we live in, and after the last few years, there is actually more or less no one where you would say it doesn't make any sense at all. But it's naturally just a matter of weighing where can you already pre-treat, etc. And then simply incorporate the apheresis, then continue to treat. And that is, of course, really a good way to help the patient well. What is really nice, just to see, we also just had 2 who come to mind right now, who have done it really prophylactically. That means they have a job that simply involves a lot of metals. They are actually both doing well, but they say, okay, I'm now in this metal field. And then we did a mineral analysis, also saw, well, there are quite a lot of metals in there. And he said, I can afford to simply say, okay, I would like to do this apheresis now to do something for myself. And that is, of course, a wonderful opportunity if someone can present it financially to say, I'll do this once a year. I have my profession, and I want to continue doing it, but I try to take care of myself as best as possible. And that is, of course, great. And when you examine the E-load the first time and the second time and already see what is changing, then that is, of course, great. It's a nice opportunity.
I already introduced in the greeting of the viewers that I recently heard in our present time are confronted with up to 10,000 different substances daily with which the body has to deal. And then we also have the topic that we have such a miracle of a body that can compensate for problems for a long time. But when it gets to the point, I always say, when it hurts, then it is already far advanced. So when we notice it, that's why prevention is all the more important, right?
I mean, now, complementing from my field, one point is also that a person must be open to such a treatment method. And that's just as exciting to see in our cooperation on what different levels we've worked so far.
Ich denke, das sehe ich wahrscheinlich mehr als Frau Schliebusch, aber aus meinem Bereich, da sind wahrscheinlich sehr wenige Menschen sofort einfach aufgrund ihrer Haltung bereit,
So I think I probably see this more than Ms.
als Möglichkeit.
Schliebusch. But from my area, there are probably very few people immediately ready, just based on their attitude, to consider such a method as an option. So it would be good to work towards that with other treatment forms first. So what is of course also related to this is that the level of suffering must sometimes be very high, so that such a therapy can be accepted. For me, it's anyway more the people who already say, I take more care of myself than, for example, with a health insurance doctor, who is of course subject to completely different laws. And that's why it's nice to let it all just come together now. And what I find as an important point, which is very dear to me for my work, is that we also look, for example, at what the emotional part behind it is, why it is so. And that, of course, gives me a wonderful opportunity with psychokinesiology systemic constellations to provide the patient with a treatment based on the emotional load that emerges, and to say what the emotional part behind it actually is. And I find that so incredibly enriching. And now I think of our Parkinson's patient who found it very, very difficult to even sit down. He did it more for his wife, but he was really already alone after the apheresis, was really lively and wanted to go out to eat with his wife, which hadn't happened for years. And then that was truly wonderful. And he really had trouble enduring it in between, especially emotionally, because Parkinson's patients are often in this kind of tension. And he was at my practice a week later. I had brought the e-load, or a part of it, and then did what we call opening a treatment. And then we had this session with psychokinesiology, with a constellation work, where I really saw, okay, what is the main issue behind it? Why does this body hold on to these toxins so tightly? Why is it so difficult for him to detoxify or let go? And it was a very early childhood trauma. It was at his birth. His mother didn't know that she was having twins. And he was the first one to come out. And he was set aside. And then, naturally, everyone focused on the second child. But he was also given away. That means his theme was to feel lost and lonely. And that was really afterwards, after this session, after the arrangement, they went for a walk for half an hour. He took care of his banking matters. And that touches me deeply, of course. So having this gift, this work, I just find it wonderful.
Yes, that's true. You can see it touches you. I think it's great to have doctors or therapists here in front of me with heart and soul. I also find your concept fantastic. You can learn so much from each other, because I can imagine you simply exchange ideas about your patients. Before, after, during. What has changed? Who did what? How? And so that this or that moves. And then you can learn so much from each other. I hope it catches on.
I hope so too. That would be desirable. Yes, definitely. It is also incredibly beautiful that just between doctor, dentist, naturopath, there is often this, let's say, these divides.
Yes, that's how it is.
And that we really sit down and say, look, I have someone coming in today. Could you come along? Can you listen? Wouldn't it be good to first take a look at him? Can you talk to him? And so on. And that's without any divides.
On equal footing.
Absolutely. And that is wonderful.
Yes, great.
And everyone contributes their part. It's not about any fears that something will be taken away. Even when the patient goes back to their doctor, you can give them this or that. Yes, exactly.
Okay, fantastic. Yes, nice to have heard that, so to hear such a concept as well. And yes, I hope, as I said, it will catch on. And where can people find you if some viewers say, oh yes, I'm also at home in the area?
So Kirschzarten, and the website is now also online. That's the 360 Med Solution. And that's where you can find us.
Medsolution.com.
36medsolution.com.
Wonderful. Then I say thank you very much, dear Christine, dear Sabine.
Thank you very much, Alexandra.
I wish you all here a continually enriching activity together under a shared cooperation roof, and that many people find their way to you and that they are helped. Thank you very much. Many heartfelt thanks.
Thank you very much.
Dear viewers, thank you very much to you too for accompanying us through the program. And I hope you had as much joy as I did in seeing that such concepts exist and that help is offered here with many hands. Many hands that reach out to each other, so to speak, for your health. In this sense, I wish you to please stay attentive, vigilant, and loving to yourself and also to the world if you like. And feel free to tune in again next time if you wish. Until then, goodbye.
Thank you for watching Swiss Health Television QS24. Please don't forget to also subscribe to the channel up here, as you can watch all the programs without ads here. But also subscribe to our YouTube channel, as this also helps us a lot. Here is a selection put together for you of programs that you might also be interested in.